Picture this. It's 4 in the morning. The world is still asleep. But somewhere in the dim light of a single candle, a man sits writing. He's the most powerful person on earth. Emperor of Rome, commander of legions, ruler of millions. And yet he writes to himself about weakness, about fear, about the mind's ability to destroy us from within. His name is Marcus Aurelius, and what he discovered 2,000 years ago is the one truth that weak people still refuse to face today, that your mind, left undisciplined, will become your greatest enemy. Not the world, not other people. You. Marcus Aurelius understood something that most of us spend our entire lives avoiding. He understood that the human mind, without discipline, without structure, without relentless training, will default to chaos. It will spiral into anxiety, collapse into victimhood, drown in distraction, and justify every failure with 1,000 excuses. And the most dangerous part? It will convince you that this is normal, that this is just who you are, that you're not strong enough to change. But here's the truth he spent his life proving. Mental discipline isn't a gift. It's not something you're born with. It's a practice. A daily, unglamorous, brutally honest practice that separates those who master their lives from those who are mastered by them. In the next 30 minutes, we're going to walk through the exact mental discipline Marcus Aurelius used to rule an empire, while his mind remained his own. We're going to uncover why most people ignore this discipline, and more importantly, we're going to show you how to build it, step by step, starting today. Before we dive deep into this ancient wisdom, if you're ready to transform how you think, how you respond to life, and how you show up every single day, subscribe to this channel. Leave a like to help others find this message. Comment below with one mental pattern you're ready to break, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Now let's begin. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you felt completely in control of your own mind? Not distracted, not anxious, not replaying conversations from 3 days ago or worrying about things that haven't happened yet. For most of us, that moment is rare, almost impossibly rare. We live in a constant state of mental noise, thoughts we didn't choose, emotions we don't want, reactions we regret, and we tell ourselves this is just how life is, this is just how the mind works. But Marcus Aurelius would tell you something different. He would tell you that this chaos isn't inevitable. It's optional. The untrained mind is like a ship without a captain. It drifts, it crashes, it's tossed by every wave, every wind, every storm. And the person inside that ship? They're exhausted. They're overwhelmed. They feel powerless. Because they are. Not because they're weak, but because they never learned to take the helm. Marcus wrote in his private journal, the one we now call Meditations, that the mind is its own place, that we have the power to choose our thoughts, to direct our attention, to decide what we allow in and what we keep out. But here's what he knew that we've forgotten. This power doesn't just appear. You have to claim it. Every single day. Most people never do. They wake up and immediately hand their mind over to their phone, to social media, to the news, to other people's opinions. They spend their entire day reacting, never creating, never directing, just responding to stimulus after stimulus after stimulus until they collapse into bed, exhausted from a life they never actually controlled, and they wonder why they feel empty, why they feel lost, why they feel weak. Marcus Aurelius ruled the Roman Empire during one of its most chaotic periods. War, plague, betrayal, constant threats from every direction. If anyone had an excuse to lose control of their mind, it was him. But he didn't, because he understood that the external world doesn't determine your internal state. Your discipline does. Your daily practice does. Your refusal to let the mind run wild does. The pain you're feeling right now, the anxiety, the overwhelm, the sense that you're losing grip on your own life, it's not because the world is too much. It's because your mind is undisciplined. And that's not an insult. It's an invitation. An invitation to reclaim what's always been yours. Let's talk about what happens in an undisciplined mind. Psychologically, it's fascinating and terrifying at the same time. When you don't train your mind, it defaults to survival mode. It scans for threats. It replays past traumas. It projects future disasters. This isn't a flaw. It's ancient wiring. Your brain is trying to keep you alive. But here's the problem. That wiring was designed for a world where threats were immediate and physical. A predator, a rival tribe, a natural disaster. In that world, constant vigilance made sense. But in our world, that same mechanism creates chronic anxiety, depression, and a sense of helplessness. Because your brain is treating every email, every social interaction, every uncertain moment as a life or death situation, and you're exhausted. Marcus Aurelius understood this. He described the mind as a fortress, strong walls, guarded gates, a place where you decide what enters and what doesn't. But most people leave the gates wide open. They let every thought, every worry, every external voice march right in and set up camp. And then they wonder why their inner world feels like a battlefield. The Stoics believed that the mind, left to its own devices, will create suffering, not because it's evil, but because it's untrained. Imagine a dog that's never been taught boundaries. It jumps on guests. It tears apart furniture. It runs into traffic. Is the dog bad? No. It's just undisciplined. Your mind is the same. Without training, it will chase every distraction, obsess over every slight, spiral into every fear. And it will do this automatically, without your conscious permission. Here's the metaphor Marcus loved: the inner citadel. Picture a fortress in the center of your being. No matter what's happening in the outside world, wars, chaos, loss, betrayal, this fortress remains untouched. But only if you guard it. Only if you're vigilant about what you allow through the gates. Most people have abandoned their citadel. They've left the doors open. And now their inner world is overrun with invaders. Other people's expectations, society's judgments, their own unexamined fears. They've lost themselves. Not because the world took them, but because they stopped defending their own mind. The beautiful and brutal truth is this: you can't control what happens to you, but you can always, always control how you respond. That response, that space between stimulus and reaction, that's where mental discipline lives. That's where freedom lives. But accessing it requires practice. It requires you to wake up every morning and remind yourself, today, I am the captain of this mind. Today I choose what I focus on. Today I decide what has power over me. And the answer, if you're disciplined, is nothing. So how do you actually build this discipline? How do you move from chaos to control? Marcus Aurelius gives us the blueprint. And it's simpler than you think. But simple doesn't mean easy. The first practice is morning reflection. Every day, before the world gets to you, you get to yourself first. Marcus would wake before dawn and sit with his thoughts. Not to indulge them, but to examine them, to question them. He would ask, what am I afraid of today? What am I hoping for? What am I avoiding? And then, the most important question, are these thoughts helping me or weakening me? This practice isn't meditation in the mystical sense. It's an audit. You're checking in with your mind to see what's running in the background, because most of your suffering comes from thoughts you haven't examined, beliefs you've never questioned, stories you've told yourself so many times you think they're facts. The second practice is the discipline of attention. Throughout the day, Marcus would catch himself. Am I present right now? Am I focused on what's in front of me? Or am I lost in my head replaying the past or rehearsing the future? Every time he noticed his mind drifting, he would bring it back. Gently, firmly, like training a muscle. This is the practice weak people avoid, because it's uncomfortable. It forces you to confront how little control you actually have, how often you're on autopilot, how much of your life you're missing because you're not even there. But here's what happens when you commit to this. You start to notice space. Space between what happens and how you react. Space to choose. Space to breathe. And in that space, you find power. The third practice is evening review. Before sleep, Marcus would reflect on the day, not to judge himself harshly, but to learn. Where did I lose control of my mind today? Where did I react instead of respond? Where did I let someone else's opinion dictate my peace? And more importantly, what will I do differently tomorrow? This isn't about perfection. It's about progress. It's about slowly, over weeks and months and years, becoming someone who is no longer controlled by their circumstances, someone who is no longer a victim of their own mind, someone who is free. Let me tell you a story. There was a man who came to a Stoic teacher and said, "I want to be strong. I want to be disciplined. I want to control my mind." The teacher said, "Good. Then stop eating for 3 days." The man was shocked. Why? The teacher replied, "Because discipline isn't something you think about. It's something you do. And it's uncomfortable. And if you can't handle discomfort in small things, you'll never handle it in big things. Mental discipline is the same. You don't build it by reading about it. You build it by practicing it. Daily. Even when you don't feel like it. Especially when you don't feel like it. There's a passage in Meditations that most people skip over. It's not poetic. It's not particularly beautiful. But it's one of the most powerful things Marcus ever wrote. He says, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Read that again. You have power over your mind, not outside events. This is the lesson weak people ignore every single day. They spend their entire lives trying to control things they can't control. Other people, the economy, the past, the future. And because they can't control these things, they feel powerless, they feel like victims, they feel weak. But Marcus is telling you, that's the wrong game. You're focusing on the wrong thing. The only thing you can ever truly control is your mind. How you interpret what happens, what meaning you assign to it, how you choose to respond. Everything else is outside your power. And when you finally accept this, when you truly internalize it, something incredible happens. You stop being fragile. You stop being at the mercy of circumstances. Because no matter what happens, you still have you. You still have your mind. You still have your ability to choose. Marcus ruled an empire, but he knew he couldn't control whether he would be betrayed, whether his armies would win, whether his children would live. He couldn't control any of it. So he didn't try. He focused on the one thing he could control, his response, his character, his discipline. Here's another hidden lesson. Marcus believed that weakness isn't a lack of strength. It's a lack of honesty. Weak people lie to themselves. They lie about why they're struggling. They blame circumstances. They blame other people. They blame their past. And every time they lie, they get weaker, because they give away their power. They make themselves victims of a story they're choosing to believe. Strong people, disciplined people, do the opposite. They tell themselves the truth, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. They say, I'm anxious because I'm avoiding something. I'm angry because I feel powerless. I'm distracted because I'm afraid to be alone with my thoughts. This kind of honesty is brutal, but it's also liberating, because once you see the truth, you can do something about it. There's a concept in Stoicism called amor fati, love of fate. It means accepting everything that happens, not with resignation, but with strength. Not saying, this is terrible, but I'll survive, but saying, this is exactly what needed to happen, and I will use it. I will grow from it. I will become stronger because of it. Marcus practiced this every day. When his closest advisor betrayed him, when plague swept through Rome, when his own body began to fail, he didn't curse the gods. He didn't collapse into despair. He said, this is my fate, and I will meet it with discipline. This is the mindset that separates the weak from the strong. Not intelligence, not talent, not luck, but the willingness to face reality without flinching, and to grow anyway. Let's bring this into your life. Right now. Today. Because philosophy means nothing if you don't apply it. Here's how you start building the mental discipline Marcus Aurelius lived by. First, every morning, before you check your phone, before you talk to anyone, sit for 5 minutes and ask yourself 3 questions. What can I control today? What's outside my control today? And how do I want to show up today? Write down the answers. This simple practice will change everything, because you're training your mind to focus on what matters, not on the noise, not on the chaos, but on your response, your character, your discipline. Second, throughout the day, practice the pause. When something happens that triggers you, an email, a comment, a setback, stop, breathe, count to 3, and then ask, is this reaction serving me, or is it weakening me? Most of the time, your first reaction is emotional. It's automatic. It's your survival brain kicking in. But you're not in survival mode. You're in life mode. And life requires discipline. It requires you to override that first reaction and choose a better one. This takes practice. You'll fail. You'll react without thinking. But every time you catch yourself, every time you pause, you're building that muscle. You're becoming stronger. Third, at the end of each day, do a review. Not a judgment, a review. Ask yourself, where did I lose control today? Where did I react instead of respond? And what can I learn from this? Write it down. Just a few sentences. Over time, you'll start to see patterns. You'll notice the triggers that pull you out of discipline. And once you see them, you can prepare for them. You can choose differently. This is how transformation happens, not in one big moment, but in 1,000 small ones. Let me give you a real example. Imagine someone cuts you off in traffic. Your immediate reaction is anger. Your heart races. You curse them. You stay angry for the next hour. But here's the question Marcus would ask. Did that serve you? Did your anger change what happened? Did it make you stronger? Or did it weaken you? Did it steal your peace? Did it hand control of your mind to a stranger who doesn't even know you exist? When you realize this, when you truly see it, you start to change. Not because you're suppressing anger, but because you're choosing peace. You're choosing discipline. You're choosing freedom. Here's another application. You're lying in bed at night, and your mind is racing. Worries, regrets, fears about tomorrow. This is where most people lose the battle. They let the mind spiral. But here's what you do. You notice it. You say, my mind is creating stories right now. These stories aren't real. They're just thoughts. And I don't have to believe them. Then you redirect. You focus on your breath. You count backwards from 100. You repeat a simple phrase, I am here now. I am safe now. This is enough. It sounds simple, but it's revolutionary because you're taking back control. You're proving to yourself that you are not your thoughts. You are the one observing them. And that makes all the difference. I want to tell you something that might change how you see yourself. You are not weak. You never were. You're untrained. There's a difference. Weakness implies you can't change, that you're broken, that you're beyond help. But untrained? That just means you haven't learned yet. And you can learn. Right now. Today. No matter how old you are. No matter how many times you've failed. No matter how lost you feel. You can learn. You can build mental discipline. You can become the kind of person who doesn't crumble under pressure, who doesn't spiral into anxiety, who doesn't give their power away to circumstances or other people, or their own unexamined thoughts. Marcus Aurelius was not born disciplined. He was born into power, yes. But he was also born into a world of temptation, distraction, and corruption. He could have become a tyrant. He could have indulged every desire. He could have let his mind run wild. But he didn't. Because he chose every single day to practice discipline, to train his mind, to guard his inner citadel. And that choice is available to you too. Right now. In this moment. You can decide. I am done being controlled by my circumstances. I am done being a victim of my own mind. I am done living a life I didn't choose. Today, I take control. This won't be easy. There will be days when you fail, days when you react instead of respond, days when your mind feels like it's winning. But those days don't define you. What defines you is what you do next. Do you give up? Do you tell yourself you're too weak? Or do you get back up, review what happened, learn from it, and try again? That decision, that choice to keep going, that's where strength lives. That's where transformation happens, not in perfection, but in persistence. Marcus wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Every obstacle you face, every moment of weakness, every failure, it's not proof that you can't do this. It's the training ground. It's where you learn. It's where you grow. The universe isn't punishing you. It's testing you. It's asking, how much do you want this? How committed are you to your own freedom? And every time you choose discipline over chaos, every time you pause instead of react, every time you examine your thoughts instead of believing them blindly, you're answering that question. You're saying, I want this. I am committed. I am becoming who I was always meant to be. So here's what I want you to remember. Mental discipline is not about being perfect. It's not about never feeling fear or anger or sadness. It's about not being controlled by those feelings. It's about creating space between what happens and how you respond. It's about being the captain of your own mind, your own life, your own destiny. And it starts today. It starts with small practices. Morning reflection, mindful attention, evening review. It starts with honesty, with facing yourself without flinching, with telling yourself the truth even when it's uncomfortable. Marcus Aurelius proved that you can live in chaos and still maintain inner peace. You can face loss and betrayal and suffering and still remain strong. Not because the world is kind, but because your mind is disciplined. Because you've trained yourself to respond rather than react, to choose rather than be chosen for. This is the mental discipline that weak people ignore every day, not because they're incapable, but because they haven't been shown the way. But now you know. Now you have the tools. Now you have the blueprint. The only question left is, what will you do with it? Will you keep living a life controlled by circumstances? Or will you claim your power? Will you build your inner citadel? Will you become the person Marcus Aurelius knew you could be? The choice is yours. It always has been. Start today, start now, and never stop. Because the world needs disciplined minds. It needs people who are strong not because they've never struggled, but because they've learned to master themselves. Be that person. Become that person. The world is waiting. Thank you for being here. Thank you for seeking wisdom. Thank you for choosing growth. I'll see you in the next one.